Okay, everyone. Can everyone hear me? So if someone can hear me, just say yes. We can't hear you. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, here we go. That's good enough. We're working through audio issues, so I think we will just continue and see what happens tonight. That's always what happens when you get onto another platform. But anyhow, thank you everyone um, for for being here. Thank you to everyone for your patience and so forth. Welcome to everyone. If this is your first time being here, or if you're new, welcome. Um, and welcome back to all of those who have been here for a bit. Um, so we'll continue tonight. So this is our new platform, but it looks like we're working things out as we go along, which is no problem. So to begin with, let's go ahead and just do our regular thing. If you want to add any prayer requests or prayer concerns, I did notice some updates as well. I think Rachel had an update as well about some folks we've been praying for. And it looks like good health. It looks like a tumor has shrunk um, with Tom. So that's really good news. So prayer works, you know, um, especially in groups, and especially group practice and group prayer actually intensifies the energy of prayer, which is just when we pray, we're just actually moving energy around. But when we get real intentional and when we get real, you know, intentional and when we get spacious about the prayer itself and how we pray, that really intensifies the energy, the power of the prayer. As I've said this before, also that you also have to let go of expectations, hope, which seems kind of contradictory when you're praying for something specific and you're also being told, but you also have to let go of hopes, of fruition, of change. Um, because contraction, shutting down, um, and grasping onto an outcome of the prayer actually limits the power of the aspiration of the prayer itself. So when we're offering prayers, and of course in tantric traditions, Vajrayana traditions, we're working to direct prayers into what we would call into a field of refuge, right? We direct prayers towards a source, very much like, other denominations, other religions, but in Vajrayana specifically, we're directing prayer into an expression of our enlightened mind, right? And our enlightened mind pervades everything, it is everything. So basically, we're praying into, like we're we're expressing energy, moving energy into the expanse of our awareness, um, and allowing that energy to begin to shift things. And one of the principles that allows that to happen is interdependence, right? So interdependence also means that energies are connected, intertwined, related to one another. So you push one energy and that energy pushes something else. It becomes like a chain, like domino effect. Um, and we've practiced this before as well. So this may be just a review for many of you, but prayer is also emotional labor as well. It's definitely an emotional labor that we're moving through. And for me, I use prayer to touch into energy and to give that energy space to move through. So if I'm praying for, the good health of someone, maybe someone's in the hospital, I'm offering prayers. Like I'm also in my prayer opening up, offering space to my anxiety, my fear, my worry, sadness, whatever it may be, and allowing that to have this spaciousness within my experience. And when I allow the spaciousness to be there, then I begin to experience it. We begin to experience the things that we're habitually running away from, and we all, you know, we all have been through all kinds of things in our life. Where many of us are moving through things right now, things for ourselves or things, in connection to our loved ones. And so there's energy there, and that energy has to be tended to, has to be taken care of. So it has to be allowed to be there. You have to open up to it. Sometimes we use the language of leaning into, which some people struggle with. But for me, it's not that I lean into whatever fear and anxiety I have for myself or for others, but I actually just relax into it. And when I relax into it, I begin to really see how that energy, I was call it brokenheartedness, begins to function for me, where it's coming up for me in my body and my mind. You know, and then I reflect, think about a source of refuge. In this case, Medicine Buddha, right? And I imagine Medicine Buddha as well as a whole field of benefactors, right? The whole field of deities and spirits and ancestors and so forth that are benevolent and who are committed to my well-being. Imagining all of those energies, those beings around me, and then offering, not just the prayer and an aspiration, but I also offer my brokenheartedness in whatever way it shows up for me in that moment, be it fear, anxiety, worry, you know, discomfort of any kind. Um, and then you let go. When you let go, you offer the prayers, you offer aspiration, you offer your brokenheartedness into this field of refuge. Then you let it go and you say, whatever happens, happens. As my teacher would say, whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. Like whatever should happen is going to happen. Of course, ultimately, what we're doing in our practice is developing a relationship to impermanence, particularly impermanence as it manifests as death and dying. The transition of, in Buddhism we would say the transition of the consciousness from the physical body back into a realm of pure energy, right? So leaving a physical realm, this particular physical realm, and our consciousness being energy and space, actually returning back to, to a place of energy, of pure energy itself, you know. So we call that entering into the bardo, we call it entering into the spirit realm, the spirit. I know there are different definitions of spirit in different traditions, but spirit is just energy. You know, spirit is energy held together by thought, um, and that one thought really is that there's a self. So that thought is really ego. That ego, the illusion of ego, binds this mass of energy into a form that we call spirit. When that ego is exhausted, that energy disperses and actually disperses back into the larger consciousness energy, which in Buddhism we would call nirvana. Entering back into rest. So energy returning back. You know, um, another way to think about it is like, it's like having just a container of water, like a bowl of water, and then you have a water balloon, right? You fill a balloon with water, and you put that uh, water balloon into that water, that bowl of water. Now, there's water on the outside of the balloon. There's water on the inside of the balloon. They're the same water, but there's this container that separates the larger body of water from this contained body of water within the balloon. The balloon represents the ego, or the sense of self, that's creating a false container that separates, that creates a boundary between the inner water and the outer water. When we begin to achieve realization, enlightenment, and so forth, that shell begins to disrupt. It begins to bust, right? And so the inner water joins the outer water. That is the experience of nirvana, the returning of conscious energy back into the larger consciousness. In Zen Buddhism, we would say big mind and little mind, like both of those coming together. And more Vajrayana traditions, we would say the meeting of mother and child, right? So the mother is the larger body of water, the child is the water contained in the balloon. Once that balloon, is disrupted, that child water enters into the mother water, the mother body of water, as well. Um, Enlightenment in that metaphor really is about the realization that the water inside this sense of ego is the same water on the outside of that balloon. So enlightenment essentially says that, oh, this balloon is unnecessary. you know, we don't really need a balloon here. Like, we can bust that balloon, and that water can mix and disperse to achieve nirvana. Um, but when we do have a sense of the illusion of that balloon or ego, then that's when true agency and power manifests and awaken, because you're no longer fooled by the illusion. Like, that this is all just a game, and you don't get caught by the game anymore, and that at any point when it becomes skillful and appropriate, you can disrupt that balloon completely and enter into nirvana, you know. Um, but the problem that for a vast, vast majority of beings is that they don't even know that their energy, their essence, their source, spirit, or conscious, however you want to put that, is being contained by anything. What we're trying to do in Buddhism is understand through experience, right? Through an actual experience, that what's inside, what we consider inside, the internal world, is simply a reflection of the external world. That the water inside is just simply a reflection of the water around us. That what happens without happens within. What happens within is happening without. So much of that view, and we're gonna get practicing. We're gonna do it like a shorter practice tonight, but that view is really also aligned with indigenous worldview. as well, that says that the universe is just a pattern, and we can observe the patterns of the universe by observing the patterns within us and the smaller patterns around us. That there isn't this randomness in the universe, that everything is happening in patterns and series and so forth, and that we have to start living in alignment with those patterns again. This is the work, I think of the work of prophets. Like, this is the work of prophets. Prophets are only looking at patterns, deciphering patterns, trying to understand the patterns of things. One of the grandest common patterns is the pattern of life and death, of birth, and death. When birth happens, birth predicts death. There's not a surprise that anything that is born will have to die. Even if you are a Methuselah, for all you theology folks, or an Arhat, one of the 12 Arhats, if you're like professional Buddhist. It doesn't matter if you live for centuries and millennia. It doesn't, or if you think you live forever. If you were born, then you will die. And that's the grand pattern of the universe. Really, what is created will be destroyed. Somehow we forget that. We forget that things will not last, especially our bodies. And what we're trying to do in our practice, as much as possible, is to live in collaboration, live in relationship to that basic pattern of life and death. That we are perpetually dying. We're moving towards what we used to call, when I was growing up, that, what did we say? That awful day, right? Moving towards that awful, awful day. It doesn't have to be so awful. But allowing our hearts to break, and our hearts breaking, we're actually able to have space for this grand pattern. And death, we have a lot of trauma around death, but death, just like birth, doesn't exist. Death and birth are just illusions. Is as much an illusion as ego, is as much an illusion as our bodies, is as much an illusion as medicine Buddha is. This is all just an illusion. And it's all real at the same time. It is both an illusion and it's also real at the same time. And again, how do we live in the intersections of both of those teachings, right? That it's real and it's illusionary at the same time. And living in that intersection, how do you give a shit about this? And this is the great struggle for people who get into these practices, who get into contemplative practices, tantric practices, whatever contemplative-based practices, and we work with the mind, and it's easy to, over time, to get whirled up into experiences of emptiness, and we begin to bypass the relative. We know in Buddhism that is not in line with the spirit of Dharma. The spirit of Dharma, as exemplified through the Heart Sutra, which is my favorite sutra. I may actually one day teach a class on the Heart Sutra, because I talk about it I do talk about it in Love and Rage, but the great teaching of the Heart Sutra is that we have to live in the intersections. That sounds familiar, right? Intersectionality, right? That's the spiritual intersectionality, but it's also a relative intersectionality that we can't live out of context, you know? Like, we have to live within the intersection of all the signs and identities and narratives and storylines that that make this real for us, at the same time living in a way where we're keeping the ultimate, the illusionary nature of everything in balance in sight. So we have to do both. We have to live in these real relative intersections and also keep our attention focused um, on the experience of the illusion of the relative of emptiness itself. you know and we give a shit about people in the world, because we understand that if many more of us understood how to live in this intersection, there would be less violence. And then for me, that's part of how I deepen my compassion is the realization that if people understood more of what was happening, then we would suffer less. You know, there would be more spaciousness. There wouldn't be it wouldn't be an end to suffering. This is where we're in the relative. We're in bodies. We're in the human realm. There will always be suffering, but it doesn't mean that there's overwhelming, debilitating suffering. Some of us have been through overwhelming, debilitating suffering. Some people spend their whole lives in that, but we don't. That doesn't have to be the totality of our experience, this overwhelming, debilitating suffering. Therefore, we go back to this basic teaching of the intersections. Yes, this is real, but it's also an illusion. And how do I balance both of those truths together as I move through my life, as I move through the world trying to create change and trying to be a good person? I don't believe in being a good person, but how do I do goodness as much as possible, right? How do I practice virtue as much as possible? Knowing this truth and not going into the extremes of nihilism or materialism. You know, both of those are dead ends. Extremism is a dead end, because extremism doesn't allow complexity, you know, like complexity doesn't have to equal complicated. you know, I may have gotten that wrong. I've been thinking about a lot of this stuff lately. Um, but complex doesn't have to mean hard or complicated or contradictory, but it just means that there's much more for us to hold space for and to be with. Um, there's much more than just black and white, up and down, right and wrong. Um, of course, what does that have to do with right now? What we're moving through right now? For me, this is the basic teaching that gets me out of bed. Every day. This is the basic teaching that keeps me moving through this life, that keeps me moving in this body and the world. It's this realization that death happens and it's supposed to happen, that I'm not being punished, for dying, and not only that, and this reality is just one experience that I'm having. It's not the only experience, you know. Um, we're non-linear beings, so time is also an illusion. So we are existing in the past as much as we are existing in the future, as well as right now. We're existing in different streams of consciousness. Um, the beings who wake up to that non-linear experience are whom we call Buddhas. And these are the people that we call saints and arhats and bodhisattvas and dharma protectors. We call them Tara. We call them Medicine Buddha, Chenrezig, or we call them Durga, um, or Ganesh, um, and whatever that system of belief is for you. When we begin to wake up to the nonlinear expression of who we are, that's when real power happens. That's when real agency. That's when the bullshit just gets cut in half. Or in half, or just completely wiped. That's when the real fun starts. Is then the realization that I am a multi-dimensional, multi-aspect being, that I am not limited to this one experience of suffering and struggle and sadness and frustration, that I have other experiences, and that I can reach out to beings like Medicine Buddha or to Tara, or to this expression of the mother, which is, again, the mother is the universal consciousness, this universal, like, love, nurturing, that's always pulling us into space. The mother is just simply space. You know, it's a space without limits, without boundaries. It's a space that's completely free, and we don't know what freedom means for us. We don't know, we don't get freedom. You know, and to get freedom, you have to start taking risks, to step into the space and to ask the mother, to ask, whomever, really, a deity, to help you move into that space. This is the system that I function in. That's a function within this deity system, right? I see the world as energies, and I see energies as enlightened, and these enlightened energies are trying to usher me into liberation, because liberation is where I'm already at, which is another tenet of Dharma and Buddhism, which is the belief that we are already free, right? We're already free. We need to realize that. We need to do the work to touch into that truth, but it's not an intellectual thing. Not that the intellect, is necessarily in the head, but what many of you struggle with is that this is all just an intellectual game for you. This is just something that you like to think about and read about, but what I'm trying to do is to get us to live liberation. I'm trying to get us to live through experience, through the body. Wisdom arises out of experience, not out of the intellect. Quite honestly, you know, wisdom, clarity, insight. If you're not interested in experiencing, if you're not interested in rolling around in the mud to figure out what cleanness is, then it's like, this isn't for you. And then we're also trying to understand our relationship to the darkness as well. And that's another place that many of you need to take a trip into. Not all of you, but some of you. You can't understand the light until we've moved through the darkness. You know, um, and there are so many practices. There are tantras that are about darkness. I think darkness is entwined in most of the tantras, but it's not super emphasized. But there are specific tantras that, yeah, we may be taking on the work of being in relationship to the light, but there are tantras that are about being in relationship to the dark, as well. Um, the one that comes to mind instantly is the practice of Dumavati, which is one of the Mahavidyas, and more kind of Indian tantric traditions, where you go into the dark. Dumavati is the mother of sorrow, of sadness, of mourning. She is the mother of of widows, or the mother of those of us who are experiencing broken hearts because we've lost our loved ones. We've lost someone precious to us, and we get stuck in the darkness, or we get stuck in this contradiction of pushing away the darkness. And what Dimavati does, she arises, she's an expression of the mother, and she arises, she takes our hand and she leads us into the depths of this darkness. You know, that's an experience. Like no matter how much we talk about the these characteristics of these practices of this tradition, it all gets real sexy and glamorous, like all the rituals and the drums and the bells and the incense and the feast offerings and practicing in cemeteries and haunted houses and all that. That's all really wonderful and great, and like people write books about it and TV shows and podcasts, like we all love that, you know. But at the end of the day, all these rituals and things are just about us trying to have this experience, trying to show up for an experience that we just keep running away from. That's the bottom, the foundation. It's like we need to just move through the experience and call in our help to do that experience, to move through that experience. This is all we're trying to do. Um, So I don't want to keep us for long, but I just want to spend another just a short 10 minutes. I just want to just move us through just a very short practice. Um, just doing just a little bit of chanting. Um, I noticed that everyone started chanting, as we were trying to get the room going. I love that. It's just let's move back into that. I want to start with first our evoking mantra, evocation, um, and that's Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. So of course, Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha means think of me. Think of me. Medicine Buddha, think of me, remember me. You know, that really, that one piece of devotional practice um, is enough. That's enough, particularly if we're choosing to allow our hearts to open. And I know that like all this is really unfamiliar and weird and new, but this one thing we're just trying to do is we're just trying to develop a little bit of trust in this practice of calling the energy and this enlightened energy, evoking rather this enlightened energy in our bodies, in our minds, in the space around us, and then trusting that energy is awakening around us and allowing that energy to take care of us. That's the practice. I want us to just really focus on that. I'm looking at the prayer requests too, so I'm holding the prayer requests and I'm moving through those prayer requests as well in my practice as well. But we're starting with this chant, the opening chant, Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Then we'll transition into the main mantra, the Teata mantra. But as we begin, there's so many ways to get into this, and I've gone through them, but the trust, like, can we start trusting that when we call for this enlightened energy, there are all kinds of energies that we can call for. Some of them are not so good. But this energy, the energy of the medicine Buddha, is just an expression of our deepest wisdom mind, our most authentic selves, right? Personified in this way as the archetypal healer, as the healer itself or themselves, right? So we're essentially evoking the aspect of who we are that are healers, ourself as the healer. So when we say, Medicine Buddha, think of me, remember me, we're encouraging ourselves to wake up to our own innate expression as the healer and letting go of the fear of being the healer. So let's just try this. We're going to begin with the opening evocation. Again, opening to the energy, trusting the energy, allowing that energy to arise. And as you're chanting the mantras, I want you to say to yourself, I am the healer. I am the healer. I am the great healer. I am the great healer because you are the great healer. I am. There is no other healer but me. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I want you to say it. Okay, so we'll begin. Om Minla Sange Kino Soha. And we'll just begin chanting that a few times, then move into the mantra. Om Minla Sange Kino Soha. 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 I want us to hum it now. And when we're humming it, bringing your palm to your chest, to your heart center, and feeling, noticing if you can, if this is something you can do tonight, noticing the vibration of humming this opening mantra. Imagining that this vibration is a healing vibration that's beginning to really scrape away, cut through the crustiness of our hearts. And that crustiness is fear, is resentment, is hate, it's confusion. All the things that keep us from loving and being loved. Okay, so beginning, again, noticing the vibration. We're going to move into just a few minutes of our chanting of the main mantra. Jayata Bekinse Maha Bekinse Rasa Sumungate Soha. As we move into the mantra, I invite you to imagine that in the heart center, that a manifestation of Medicine Buddha, of the healer, begins to arise. And that can be an actual representation of Medicine Buddha that you kind of see to my shoulder, over my shoulder there, or just a healing presence, a healing figure beginning to appear in the heart center, and that healer just resides there, is resting within the heart center. And that healer begins to radiate with this light, this warm, white, radiant light that begins to fill up our bodies and our minds. And so we're completely filled with this energy, overflowing with this energy. And we become like stars with so much energy, this healing radiance that begins to radiate from our bodies because we're so filled. We become like stars. And our star begins to illuminate the darkness of these times that we're living through. This darkness of just hate and delusion, of intense over-consuming and over-consumption desire. And as all this darkness is being illuminated, we begin to come back into balance. And the world comes back into balance. And the earth, the land comes back into balance. As we begin the chanting, Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Maha Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Maha Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Teya Ta Bekenze, Bekenze Ma Bekenze Rasa Sumung Gate Soha. Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumanga Sua. Teata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, Raza Sumunga Desua. 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 We dedicate this energy, this light, the blessings of Medicine Buddha and all deities and spirits and energies trying to get us free to the liberation, to the healing, to the balance, to the enlightenment of all those we've offered in prayers tonight, all of those we will ever continue to offer in prayers. And we offer this energy for all of our lives to come until we one day enter into complete nirvana. May whatever we've done tonight in our practice be energy that guides us from this realm of the living into the realm of the spirit. May we all be free. Now turning our attention to Shantideva's prayer. Okay. You see that right in the chat box. We're going to just repeat this 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all the sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. Thank you, everyone, for your practice today. Thank you for your patience as we're getting this new platform set up for us in this space. Right. And so the great thing about this that we didn't talk about is that you have this recording now. So this is, I think we have this recording now. But you can just come back and watch this. You know, so you subscribe to the Bhumi Sparsha channel that you see just in your browser, and then and every week now you will automatically get an update and a reminder for the session, and you get a reminder in your email, whatever email you use, and you just click the link and it brings you right here, so you don't have to go back to the website anymore, or you don't, and you'll have the recording now of this session that you can just come right back to and look at during the week. So I think this is a win-win kind of deal for us. Um, so so please come back and watch this, and look at it again. I dropped some heavy stuff for you to roll with. So it takes a minute to kind of chew through. So please check my website and Booming Smarter website for all of our events this week. I have all kinds of events coming up later this week. Please join us Wednesday night for our community Dharma sharing with our one of our community leaders, Aisha Aili, at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Again, that's going to be on this platform on Crowdcast as well. So please join us for that Wednesday night, and everything else. And I think that's it. We will be starting Sunday service up again. It's only going to be once a month now. We are starting also a new practitioners gathering every Sunday as well. So it's just going to alternate. It's just going to be every 2 weeks is going to be either Tara practice and Mahamudra, or a new practitioner. So if you're a new practitioner in terms of like being new to meditation, or maybe being new to Buddhism or something like that, then that would be a space for you. And just keep checking our website and sign up for the newsletter for Booming Sparsha to know when that's going to happen. It's going to happen this month. Okay, so that is it. And we'll have time for questions next week. So if you have questions, bring them next week, and we'll have set aside time to go through those. We got started a little late, and I know people have to kind of get out of here. Okay, so thank you, everyone, and please be well. Please practice. Please continue to pray, and do whatever feels appropriate for you as we move through this time right now. Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye.